Hey, everybody. So there is a point in recovery when something shifts. When we actually talk about we're not just referring to men, but that's who I typically work with. But when a person stops trying to recovery and they start living recovery, where it comes from something like it's a checklist bound, or I'm doing it for another reason than it actually becoming something that they live. Because we're not about the checklist. It's not going to be about the compliance. It's about the level of ownership. It's about choosing like the discomfort, choosing courage, choosing recovery. So today I get a chance to have you meet Isy Williams. She's a fellow coach at Choose Recovery Services, and we want to talk about this turning point. So we're both passionate about the subject, so I'm going to be asking her some questions, but I'm excited to spend some time with you on it.
Welcome to Beyond the Facade podcast. I'm your host, Luke Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you join me in this space today. What we're going to be doing is diving deep into the trials and triumphs and truths of seeking authenticity. Becoming your true self isn't about a single action or moment. It's a relentless pursuit, a commitment to self that reveals the rich connection and meaning that our life has to offer. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a regular listener, know this: what you're building here goes beyond a conversation. You're here to challenge, to change, and to celebrate the incredible journey of becoming your authentic self. Because when you dare to show up fully, the rewards are immeasurable. So welcome to Beyond the Facade. Let's get started.
Okay. All right, everybody. So let's start off with an introduction to Isy. So Isy, I'm going to talk about you for just a second, but I'm going to save all the things that you want people to hear about, but I'm going to share a couple things. So I love it when you get a chance to pull coaches in here that you guys haven't had a chance to meet. Isy is like I just said, a coach for us, but we loved Isy and the skill set she brought. She has a story, just like everybody does at Choose Recovery Services, that's powerful, that brings hope. So if you get a chance to spend time with her, you'll get that sense that it's not just something that she got an education on, but it's a lived experience. Isy, I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad that people get a chance to sense your energy, whether it's half of our listeners 47% of our listeners are actually the betrayed partner. Then the other part is the person that did the betraying. And so we're speaking to both people, but it's made for specifically the content to be around the betraying partner's experience. But Isy, what do you want people to know about you before we get into content?
Luke, thanks for having me on. Again, I really appreciate it. I think the best thing to know about me is I have a heart to do this work. And I think I would say that of pretty much all the stuff on Choose Recovery, that we didn't land here just by chance. And I think out of that heart, I really love to encourage, although I work predominantly with the betrayed, my demographic is mostly women. I have such a heart for the men. Again, we just clarified, didn't we, earlier on, for the use of language. We fully recognize that there are wives and females that betray their partners. So I say men to say, because that's usually who I'm working with, their wives or their partners. But I've got such a heart to encourage men that in the difficult journey of recovering from problematic sexual behavior or sexual addiction, there's such hope. There really is such hope to really not just master your recovery, but completely change and move into new healthy cycles of living and becoming the men they really want to be. And I think that's such an important message in addiction and the problematic sexual behavior. If the guys aren't hearing that when they're in the trenches and doing the hard work and seeing little results, oftentimes for extended periods of time, sometimes, I think they need to hear that message, that keep pushing through and that there really is hope to adopt a new healthy cycles of interacting, of behavior, of intimacy. So yeah, that's really quite a passion I have.
I love that. Yeah, and your energy brings that safety to this work, and excited for you guys to get a chance to spend time with Isy, but you'll sense her presence here as we talk. Okay, before we jump into the first part, I wasn't planning on doing this so much, but let's talk about the stages of change here for a second. If you look at Google or do some work on motivational interviewing, it's a weird way to describe it, but it talks about change. So like if a therapist or a coach meets with somebody and does some motivational interviewing, it's like, where are they at in the change process? Are they ready for change? And if they're not ready for change, what would get them to a place where they're ready to I like to call let go of an outcome, stop controlling, basically submit, 12 step, submit. What is the word? Surrender.
Yeah.
Yes, surrender. So we're going to be talking about this place where we go from control and managing an outcome as the individual seeking recovery, the person that did the betraying, the hiding, where it becomes something that I have to do, to something I'm letting go of an outcome and I lean into, and now I'm doing it, a lived experience. Izzy, let's start off with the part we would call the spark of transformation. So I loved what you recently said to me, that when a person did the betraying, the personal compulsive behavior, person lying, chooses full immersion into recovery and really works their tools, great things start to happen. Can you tell me more about what that immersion looks like to you, what you've noticed?
Yeah, wow, that's such a good question. I think what that immersion looks like to me, my main framework for that is looking at my husband and his own phenomenal recovery, which was multifaceted. Lots of things have contributed to the success of his recovery. But looking at other husbands or partners of the betrayed, I think there's lots of things contribute to helping them get to that place where they really are immersed. It's like taking an external set of behaviors which they know they need to adopt in order to recover well and for their recovery to be successful, and actually internalizing them, isn't it? So it's taking the outside and making it their inner language, if you like. So becoming organic, making it organic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, since you brought him into it, I wouldn't have pulled him into it, but since you pulled him into it, can I ask you a question about him?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then you can
Absolutely.
choose what you want to talk about, what you don't. What did you notice, like from him? I don't know, from a change standpoint, sometimes when changes are ready, it's like half one foot in, not inexperienced, not all the way in, the
Yeah.
commitment. So what did you notice about the halfway in, halfway out experience?
What, for my own husband?
Yeah, what I want to say is you brought him up,
Yeah.
but yeah, like you watched it. You said he's working his recovery. There's been some change there. So I assume that wasn't maybe all the case. There has been times where you've witnessed kind of part way in, part way not, and then a fully in, a committed. So
Yeah.
I just wondered about that.
Yeah. No, I definitely brought him up for a good reason, because I feel, and he would say it himself, that he's a really good example of somebody that spent the best part of 4.5 years, so let's say 3 years, really struggling to grasp his recovery and not working the tools, not being all in, but not really being aware that he wasn't all in, trying, but not getting good results in terms of my ability to respond to him, and just his own frustration at not being able to break through into being the man he wanted to be and adopting the habits and the mindsets that he really wanted to. So I think it was almost like, it's like running a marathon and you're tired along the way, but you know you've got to keep going. But there's times where you stop and you kind of give up and you stop running and you're just kind of walking. So there was lots of that. But I think a key turning point for him, just to backtrack, I think he would say that he often measured his success of recovery against how I felt, how I was showing up, and what I thought. And whilst I think that's good, wives definitely, their input is crucial. We could agree on that. I think a huge turning point for him is when he came up against frustration after frustration, because I wasn't responding to his changes perhaps the way he wanted. He got to a point, I think, where it changed, where he felt, I need to do this for me. I need to recover for me, regardless of how Izzy feels or shows up or what she thinks. And that was hard, because he didn't want to say to me, I don't care what you think, Izzy, I know I'm recovering, because that's not a safe behavior for a recovering husband or partner to say to his betrayed wife if you're looking to save the relationship, right? Definitely came into a place where he wanted to internalize his recovery for himself. And the path of frustration almost led him there. I think he also realized that just certain things, certain ways of thinking, and his belief system just wasn't conducive to good healing. So much of his therapy also showed up in that. with the fact that he was able to identify when he was acting in. By acting in, I mean, instead of acting out, right, with problematic sexual behavior, acting in as in returning to perhaps pouting or sulking when I didn't show him the attention that he wanted. So he was able to identify when he was acting in and when he went into like little boy mode. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, but the young wounded boy in him would often show up in the relationship in certain moments where he was triggered, and he got to a place where he didn't want to keep living out of that little broken boy, where he wanted to show up as the man. But he wouldn't have been able to change that had he not been aware of his brokenness and how he had patterns of behavior and default kind of coping mechanisms that were faulty. So that was a huge pivotal point for him. The other pivotal point for him, I think that he would say, is when he really took hold of his recovery tools, which his CSAT helped him massively with. Actually realizing he's got all these good intentions for recovery and all the things he needs to do, go to the 12 step, have a coach, have a mentor, do your daily meditation or your commitment to your higher power, you're seeking out, you're tending to your spiritual life. He meant to do those things and semi thought that he was, but when he actually realized, you know what, I haven't taken full hold of this and really worked my tools. And then when he began to do that, there was a very marked, I wouldn't say sudden, but it was pretty quick compared to the last 3.5 years of dipping in and out of recovery, not being consistent. There was a very marked change in his commitment to his recovery. So that to me was like his full immersion.
Why do you think he went from, I don't know, just call that. So just say this. Why do you think he went from not valuing the tools to leaning into them? I'm sure a lot of partners would be listening to this being like, I wish he would. I wish he would use the tools. And I'm thinking about showing up with men that I work with, and some of them, a lot of things taking priority over recovery, like not using the tools, not because they're like, these tools are junk, they're not going to work. It's the priority that they put. So why there was there a shift?
Yeah, it's a good question, Luke. I wish he was here to
I
speak.
know, that's what I was thinking. I was like, where's he at?
Yeah,
Is he
he
at?
loves to share. He loves to share his story in a healthy context. I think he valued the tools. I perhaps wonder if he wasn't at a point yet where he realized how effective they actually are when you dig into them and utilize them. Again, I think, like I said before, I think what played into that was repeated frustration, realizing this is just not working, and him coming back to me and me saying, but I feel like you need to dig in more for yourself.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, I feel like that was a significant piece of what caused the shift.
I wanted to jump in there on that. Okay, Izzy, here's what I'm thinking. Like, this transformation begins. And one of the things that I'm hearing you talk about that I think really, really matters is the people that are trying to recover, the individuals seeking recovery, that betrayed somebody. There is a piece of motivation that exists to be able to survive by not losing your tribe, by not losing the people that are going to help you make it through life. But I love what recovery does is if you stay in the right environments, the right therapist, the right coach, the right group, is you'll constantly be in a partnership with somebody that really gets recovery, is you'll realize like you can't keep that control, that you can't control other people. You can't control how they feel, what they think. And you realize I can influence people and be healthy. So it's not about me getting somebody else to see something. It's about what do I want inside of myself. So I heard you say he stayed in that environment long enough to kind of like hit the wall over and over again, like that fly that bangs their head on the wall to go, I can't do this anymore. But he didn't leave the environment that always existed to have the tools there. So now there was a value in it. Now I wasn't doing it for somebody else. And that's where the real transformation began. And it came because there was awareness of something that didn't exist before, that was always there, but now he had to be able to see it because it's all in layers, right? So now there's clarity, there's understanding, and there's growing connection. And now there's a desire to connect to an authentic self. Like, who am I? And it's a beautiful part of the process, and it's like layered. So I think there's a part of me that does the motivational interview and that goes, what stage of change are you in? And it's not to make somebody hurry up to the next stage. Is we can create awareness of where you're at with readiness for change. It will move on its own as long as you don't leave the environment that will foster that. Any thoughts on that before we get to the next part?
No, I love that. I do. It's got me thinking that digging into the tools of recovery for a husband, they can really connect that piece about connecting to the authentic self. I think that's really what happened with my husband, is that in digging into the tools, consistently showing up for 12-step recovery program meetings, even though it was inconvenient because one was on a Saturday morning and one was on a Sunday afternoon, his outright commitment to do that, being around the other guys, because these were all male groups, obviously, and just really spending the time, investing the time in showing up to those meetings, I think that contributed massively to the transformational effect, because I remember he said being around the other men who were broken and struggling also impacted him, where he just knew deeper and deeper he didn't want to stay in that place. He didn't want to live his life out of that constant struggle. And he believed that there must be more. So for him, at least, that played a huge part in that transformation, in that shift into not just the shift of, hey, I'm not just doing this for Izzy, I'm doing this for me. I need to do it for me. I want to be better. I want to be free. I want to see if I can really live out of a place of healthy coping mechanisms, healthy interaction, if I can experience true intimacy and move away from my brokenness into wholeness and healing. And I think you can't underestimate the power of the therapy and the tools and the application of the recovery package, if you like, the recovery journey. And I've seen for myself in my own husband, that's why I'm using him as an example, that it really works. It really does work. And it's been very important for his direction and healing as a man in his own right, not just as a husband.
Yeah, I love that. Let's touch on this part, but we'll touch on it briefly, and then we'll move to the discomfort part. But let's talk about you. You mentioned before that ownership is critical, that nobody can do recovery for you. And I want to ask you, why do you think that ownership is so essential? But you also mentioned, I think this was you that said this, but you talked about recovery being something that happened, that something that happens isn't something that happens to you, but it's something that happens through you. I can't remember if it was that you or not. Was it you that said that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've said a lot of things.
Yeah, they've said a lot of things. I'm not sure. But can you speak about that ownership piece? Anything that comes up for you around? And we kind of already have, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, look, I think when I think of as a betrayed wife, when I think of the betrayed women that I work with, and I think of my own journey, I read like a meme. Is it called a meme? I read a meme or a quote a long time ago that said, "You didn't cause your pain, but you have to fix it." You've probably heard that. Somewhere in me along my journey, I internalized that. And that helped move me from the injustice of betrayal to actively working to recover from it. Okay, I didn't do this to myself. It's not fair. Which is legitimate, isn't it? And justified completely, 100%. To, I need to own moving forward and working through this pain so that I can do something productive, powerful, and healthy with my pain, though I didn't cause it or plan it. And it's kind of hijacked my life. I see that playing out for the husband. And that's why I'm passionate as well about encouraging the husband, the man, the partner with problematic sexual behavior. And because that plays out for their recovery too, doesn't it? They may feel like they kind of landed up with this addiction, this problematic sexual behavior that's often totally derails their life. But then they have to face that moment, that crossroad where they're going to decide, if I own this, I stand a very good chance of mastering it and ruling over it. If I take the chance of digging deep and throwing myself into recovery, like I would throw myself into my job, for example, and invest as much intentional energy and thought into it as I would something that I know I need to do, which is go to work to earn money, then that's the power of transformation. That's the key to transformation, and that's the power of ownership. And I think we could all agree, hopefully, that whatever we take responsibility for and we really own and internalize, because that becomes not just something we're doing, it becomes who we are, then that's where it unfolds and manifests in our life and it becomes real and we see results. You can apply that to so many things in life, right? So that's my thoughts on that.
That's beautiful. I want to build on that with you because that's inspiring to hear that part. And I think about recovery being like a reclamation process, like what's mine. And I can think out in two different ways. Yeah, I love the fact that you're talking about I didn't cause that, but I do need to do something with that. And that's my responsibility. Learning what is your responsibility and what's not your responsibility. And I'll think about the people that I work with, because I work with men, and they go through and they recognize in family of origin, there were some blurred lines. Whose emotions am I responsible for? And learning what's mine and having ownership of it. And even though I didn't cause it, there can be ownerships over certain things, but there are certain things that I don't. The most common one that I won't go down into because it's a podcast on its own, which is my partner's emotions, my partner's feelings. If I caused harm, if I hurt, sometimes a maladaptive part of that process is taking on somebody else's emotions and being responsible for them. And it can become really hurtful when I go to my partner, okay, my job is to fix your emotions. No, my job, my responsibility, what's mine is to be present with you and your emotions, not to fix yours. So I just like that you're talking about ownership of what is mine. I think it matters.
It does. I love that. That's powerful. That's powerful in the dynamic between the husband and wife or the two partners wanting to heal and restore coupleship. That's so powerful because there's that confusion, isn't there, between, okay, I caused my partner or my wife or my husband so much pain, so now I've got to fix this pain. I've got to stop their pain. But the truth is they can't stop their pain. They can help restore safety by demonstrating they're willing to rebuild trust. But the wife or the betrayed partner still has to learn and own her or his part in saying, okay, this person hurt me, but I've got to learn to manage my own emotions and not make them fully responsible for fixing my emotions. And again, that's part of her journey or their journey, isn't it? To get to a place where they've grieved, they've moved, they're hopefully moving through those stages well enough to reach a point where they can say, okay, my husband, my partner can't fix my feelings.
Excellent.
I can fix my feelings. I can do a lot. So the ownership part is extremely powerful in so many dynamics, not just for the partner with the addictive behavior or the problematic sexual behavior, not just for the betrayed partner, but for the coupleship too, just for the whole thing. It's so important.
Izzy, you said something to me that stuck with me. You said the people in recovery have to embrace all the discomfort and meet in the willingness to face their fears. Can you talk to me more about that? Because we're already on emotions. So what do you notice about people that start to see discomfort differently or what they do with it?
Such a good one, isn't it? It's like open the can of worms. I think it's human nature to avoid discomfort, to avoid particularly emotional pain. I've learned on this journey that I was avoidant. Never would have thought I was avoidant. Thought I was.
You wouldn't have said that.
No, not at all. No, I because I'm not afraid of healthy confrontation. Therefore, I labeled myself as I'm definitely not avoidant. But actually, when I discovered in my journey of all the pain of betrayal and having to do the hard work to heal, I was super avoidant. You never know what comes out of you when pain points get touched, right? You just don't know what's going to show up. And obviously it's helpful to find out because then you can minister to your needs and your healing accordingly.
Yep.
I think, sorry, Luke, what was the question again? Did I just go down?
No, just the discomfort. What do you notice about people,
the discomfort.
how they embrace all the discomfort and specifically in the change process? Like what does discomfort have to do with the change process?
Yeah, it's such a good topic, Luke. Discomfort has a lot to do with the change process. I often think of it like the butterfly. Again, this is something I read. It's not my wisdom, it's somebody else's, but it's so good. So, we see a butterfly, we see the beautiful butterfly flying around, but we don't appreciate what that little caterpillar went through to get to being the butterfly, right? We can't appreciate the process. So I think there has to be a process, a willingness rather, to submit to the process of change. And that will mean embracing discomfort, because it's simply the fact that whether you're sat with a problematic sexual behavior or a sexual addiction, or whether you're the betrayed partner, there is massive, intense, severe discomfort that comes with facing the stuff, all the stuff that needs to change. So for the person with the problematic sexual behavior or the sexual addiction, it's the discomfort of realizing this has derailed my life and landed me in a place where I'm powerless. I can't control myself. I'm ruled by this thing. I'm not ruling over this thing. So that discomfort can send you on different trajectories, right? Depending on what you choose to do with it. That's why I think it's so important to embrace the discomfort. And that's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. But if we can understand that the principle that we don't always have to operate on feelings, we can trust a process here and know that it's okay if it's uncomfortable. I won't die because of the discomfort. I can face the discomfort. I can create space emotionally inside myself to explore the discomfort. And I'm trusting that as I face the discomfort, I will make the next step forward in the process of the transformation, of the healing, whatever you want to call it, of the freedom from the problematic sexual behavior, the cycle of addiction.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
And I think the dialogue that I have with myself around discomfort really matters. I know from being a man, when it comes to what I was taught growing up, which is be tough, is the discomfort. The way I ran at it was, no, just be okay with discomfort. Like, just, it's fine. Like, just, it's hard, toughen up. But discomfort is actually the process of sitting with the discomfort. Like, it's going, acknowledging, and it feels like I'm embellishing, but to a certain point, I'm really not, which is, this does feel like it's going to kill me. Thinking about that thought, feeling about that thought, not drowning in it, but going, yeah, I want to acknowledge the fact that my partner's not wanting to engage with me physically. I feel like I'm not going to be okay. But instead of drowning in that, going, yeah, there's a part of me that says I'm not going to be okay. And to think about those thoughts, think about those feelings, instead of powering through them. So the discomfort isn't just going, I'm uncomfortable, let's go. It's like, what is this discomfort saying?
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's for both parties, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, thank you.
It's for both parties, and it's for the growth in the coupleship as well. If couples get to a place where they're able to work on the coupleship, work on the us, that's also going to be there facing the discomfort. It's a touchy subject because we typically want to, guys or people with problematic sexual behavior don't want to face and embrace their reality. And that's what the discomfort often comes from, embracing reality, where I am actually at, where I have landed, and what to do with it, and wading through it. There's such huge hope. And that's always my message, is that there's always hope. And there's complete hope of change, transformation, and a new beginning.
Yeah.
I love to herald that message.
I love that. I love that. All right. So Izzy, so you've talked about this new cycle, one where there's awareness and clarity and authenticity, and they replace the things like shame and hiding. So I'm curious, what does that look like day to day? Because as we wrap out this podcast, I want to talk about, what does this new cycle look like? If it's not about perfection and it's not about never messing up, what is it about?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. It's such a good question to wind down with. I think it's the clarity of coming into realizing, embracing the reality, accepting that there's going to be discomfort, moving forward into new habits, new patterns, new ways of thinking and behaving. It's so important for both partners, but particularly the partner struggling with the problematic sexual behavior, to be able to know, what does that look like every day practically? Like, how would I know if I'm really in a good place in my recovery and moving into like the new cycle, the new way of showing up for themselves and for their partner. Again, to use Matt as an example, my husband, he has literally gone from, he would also say, Luke, his faith, and I would agree with him, his faith is a huge part of his transformation as well, but he could speak to, to that in more detail. But I think that he shows up in completely different ways than how he showed up before. He's done some inner child work, and that completely opened his eyes to seeing the broken little boy that would show up in him in the relationship. So that's a huge piece of it. He's doing and done family of origin work, and he comes out with incredible insight, which he will share with me. So that's another thing. He will openly share insights from his own heart. He'll just come and share them with me. I don't have to go digging for his heart. I don't have to go asking questions or seeking him out. He happily, comfortably comes to me and shares insights into his own heart and his own personal journey. And he volunteers that. So what that is, to label it, is he's become emotionally present. So again, he's not perfect, and I don't expect him. I'm healed enough, thank goodness, to be able to know he doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't need to get it right all the time. But even when he does make mistakes, perhaps in not realizing that I'd be triggered by something, he's really, really quick to come to me and say, I can see that that was a trigger. And I just want you to know that I see that and I'm sensitive to it.
New patterns.
Yeah, he didn't go fix the trigger or prevent the trigger, but he showed up for me in the trigger.
Yeah, he saw.
He saw it. And the way he spoke to me, the way he was emotionally available and attentive is so soothing and healing and reassuring for me. It just maintains that connection with us, and it maintains that sense of safety I have as a betrayed partner, that I don't feel hyperactivated or hypervigilant. And I have to be aware to ask him all the time, like, how are you doing? What did you think about this? And that behavior is safety seeking behavior. So it's valid. And I'm not invalidating that. But there's a place where the betrayed partner can grow past that. And it's this beautiful dance between husband and wife, or betrayed partner and person with problematic sexual behavior, where they come to that place of healing where they can dance healthily together. So that's how that, one of the ways that shows up in everyday life. And there's so many other things, Luke, that my husband does. It's so many that exemplify how his recovery is successful, that he's come into that new cycle.
And that's what we don't want it to be. If this podcast turned into, hey, Izzy, tell us what the checklist looks like, we defeat the purpose of the podcast. The thought here, what I'm hearing you talk about, is it's letting go of the managing the behavior. Because I remember, because what did he do? He's like, I'm not going to try to manage Izzy. I'm not going to show up and need her to feel something differently. He named what he saw in you and he held space for it. I know it's a trigger word for people, but he was like, I see this. And then he was present for that. So I love that it's not about managing behavior, but it's about embodying change. And I can reflect on my recovery. I remember sitting in my truck one time, and it was one of the many times that I made it a long time without acting out. And I knew, it felt it in my bones that, like, Luke, your moments from acting out again, and you don't want to act out, but it felt like my will was taken from me and I was going to act out. And it was devastating to go on for the amount of time and felt like I was powerless. And I recognized that whole time I was trying to manage my behavior. I was trying to not do something, right? But what it was really about was managing the embodying change, which is all the things that led me to that point that I was out of control. I think once we let go of the managing the behavior and embodying change, the discomfort and everything we talked about today, that's recovery, and that's submitting to a process. But Izzy, I just want to thank you for your time. It sounds like we're going to have you back again. So I'm very excited about that. And anything you want to say before we conclude?
I'm really grateful. It's been such a pleasure to be here and to share. And yeah, again, my message will always be that there is complete hope for betrayed partner, person struggling with problematic sexual behavior, and the coupleship. There really is hope on so many levels. And just to plow in and not to be discouraged. Discouraged is part of embracing the discomfort, but just to keep on pushing forward and trust the process.
Cool. Good stuff. Thank you for your time, Izzy. Everybody, if you're listening and you're in that space, maybe you've been doing a lot of work, but it feels mechanical. Just want to challenge you. go all in. Then don't dip your toes into recovery, dive all in. Transformation doesn't come from like partial effort. It doesn't come from recovery being a side hobby or a side gig. It comes from you choosing to immerse yourself in that discomfort into your own journey and facing that head on. So anyway, everybody take care, and we will talk to you next time.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. If this is something that you connected with, I'd love to meet with you more and talk about it. So what you can do is go to chooserecoveryservices.com or check the show notes. And there what we can do is set up a quick conversation meeting. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Facade, where we unmask the authentic self.